Hi everyone, and welcome to this Stage 3 betting preview for the Tour de France, brought to you by Goodforthegame.co.za. Well, we're in for another exciting stage today, but before we get to that, let's wrap up yesterday's action. And Julian Alaphilippe, the 4-1 favourite at the start of the stage, well, he hung in there all day. There was a fairly strong break that got away, but they were never given him a lot of leeway. Very cleverly, his team put someone in the break, so that his quick-step team did not have to work that hard. And in the end, he won a three-man sprint from Mark Hershey, a youngster. I've got to say, one of our forum posters, Coyle, had him at 55-1 and was absolutely just touched off in the end. So very unlucky not to nail that one. And Adam Yates, who looked very impressive in coming across on the final climb to Alaphilippe and Hershey. He wasn't as fast in the sprint. He finished third. And then the bunch were just behind Greg van Avermaet, who we were on not for a podium, so it didn't hurt me too much. I was on him on the outright. I followed at Groot Lem on Twitter, who liked him each way there, and he was 33-1 for the stage, but ended up finishing fourth. No change as far as the GC classification goes, but it was an enjoyable stage. Perhaps would have loved a bit more GC action on the big clouds, but let's face it, it was never really going to happen unless, for some reason, one of the big guns showed a lot of weakness, which, given the pace they were going, was unlikely. Let's go across and have a quick look at the outright betting update. And here we are on WSB side. Primož Roglič 22-10, Egan Bernal 28-10. No surprises here, not a lot of change. WSB are quite generous with their outright prices. If we look at Tom Dumoulin 10-1, Dumoulin hit the deck yesterday. Reportedly nothing wrong, but it was a strange old accident. But it wasn't like they were going particularly fast. They were actually climbing at the time, and it just looked like he lost a bit of concentration. Tivo Pino, who does appear to still be carrying some scars from his stage 1 crash, he's 14-1. That is a big price. And Pogacar, my fancy, he's 14-1 as well. Julian Alaphilippe, I've seen him as short as 11-1 in places. He's 20-1 to win the Tour, and as I've repeatedly stated on this show, both last year and this, I wouldn't back him with your money. You can get 20-1 and better the balance. A quick look at the green jersey points classification update. Peter Sagan was out there yesterday. He did get pipped in the intermediate sprint by Matteo Trentin, but he's looking very solid for that green jersey at this point. He's 5-10. Sam Bennett, you'll see today's stage favourite. He's 4-1. Alexander Kristoff, winner of stage 1, 13-2. And there's my man, Matteo Trentin. Got him at 50-1. Was it 66-1 to win, and 11-1 a podium at the start? And he's at 9-1. And I've just got to hope he keeps rolling. Realistically, I think Sagan would have to have some real bad luck for Trentin to beat him in this green jersey race. But I do think that he's got a chance of running onto the podium, and that was my main bet. So certainly pulling for him there. Caleb Ewan 20-1, and you can get 22-1 and better the balance. Right then, on to stage 3 today. It's 198 kilometers. And yet again, this is no straightforward stage. You'll see plenty of lumps, particularly in the early to middle part of the stage. The last 80 kilometers or so, it's fairly flattish. But what that means is we're more than likely going to get a strong break that goes away today. You know, traditionally in Tour de France sprint stages, and we saw this even in stage 1, you get 3 or 4 riders from weaker teams that go off from the start. They're kept on a tight rein by the sprinters' teams, and eventually they reel back in, and we get our bunch sprint finish. Today is not going to be quite so straightforward. You can see from the profile that there's going to be potential for some strong men to attack. This would be a stage where if Thomas de Gendt would spring to mind if he wasn't working for Caleb Ewan. This would be the sort of stage where he would get out there into the break. But there are going to be plenty of guys looking to get into the break. And then the question is, can the sprinters' teams keep them on a tight leash and then reel them back in? And because of the profile of the stage, I don't believe it's going to be that straightforward. We've already mentioned we don't have the strong sprinters' teams of previous years. And secondly, some of the sprinters' teams have taken a bit of a knock already. We've got Lotto, who are 2 men down. That's Caleb Ewan's team. Add to that the fact that Ewan isn't looking particularly strong at the moment, and we'll touch on that in a match bet we've got later. And then you look at the Kuhne Quick-Step. Now, the favourite for the stage, and we'll quickly go to the betting here. The favourite for the stage is Sam Bennett. It will be 3.25-1 if we look at it in terms of fractions. I'm not logged in at the moment, so it shows the decimal rather than the fraction here, which I prefer. And this is on Sunbet, so he's just over 3-1 there, and Caleb Ewan 4-1. And just talking about Bennett, now he obviously is part of the Quick Step team, which is also defending the yellow jersey of Alaphilippe. And they certainly have a team capable of keeping the break in check. They've got some very strong riders. They're not a pure climbing team, but they've certainly got guys who can keep the break in check. And I'm sure they'll be looking to do that to bring a finish for that will suit Bennett. But at the same time, they must have their eye on future stages. And I believe they are looking at keeping this yellow jersey for as long as possible. And with that in mind, you'd have to question if they're going to be happy to burn all their resources in keeping this break in check. And they'll probably rely on help from other teams. Reading between the lines, what I'm saying here is the break has a chance today. It's certainly, as you'll see by the betting, probably more likely to come down to a sprint, but I do give the break a chance. And you'll see my staking plan. I've shoved a couple of long shots in here because I think we could be in for a thrilling chase, and it might just be one of those situations where the break hold on, which is not very common for the early stages of the Tour de France. Let's go back to that stage betting. Then we got Bennett, Ewan, Alexander Kristoff. You can get him at 11-1, which looks a pretty good price if you think that this will be another tough, hard stage, and that's what he loves. And the way he won that first stage was pretty impressive. Peter Sagan, he just doesn't have the spring in his legs as he used to, but at the same time, he's still a brilliant rider. You can never discount him. He's 11-1. Seasball from Sunweb, he looked very good in stage one. He finished third in the end. He hit the front a little bit early. He's 12-1. And then you've got Nizzolo, who didn't look so good on some of the climbs. I'm a little bit worried about him on this stage, but certainly if he does make it to the end, he's sprinting exceptionally well. He was quite unlucky in stage one, where he had to sit up and ended up drifting slightly. He could have certainly had a top 3 finish, at very least top 4. And then Mats Pedersen at 14-1. He finished very, very strongly. He lost his lead-out train in stage one and eventually came in with Voss finishing second. Very strong man. This guy is, of course, the world champion. Wout van Aert, well, it was very interesting to watch yesterday's stage because Alaphilippe was pretty much favourite all the way. And then when Jumbo started working on the front, the assumption was that Wout van Aert was going to have a go at the stage. And he actually shortened into a 5-4 favourite at one stage with Alaphilippe drifting out. But in fact, Wout van Aert, he didn't look to have his best legs yesterday. And also when Dumoulin went down, he was sort of forced to drop back anyway. But by that point, he was already sitting quite far back in the bunch. I'm not convinced he would have gone for it, and I certainly won't be backing him for this stage either. I really do think that yesterday exposed a few weaknesses in both Ineos and Jumbo-Visma, and I think any doubts from Jumbo-Visma as to what Van Aert's job is on this tour are now thoroughly ended, if I can put it that way. He's going to be focusing on the GC classification. Yesterday showed that this is going to be an incredibly tough Tour de France to control, and even the strong teams are going to be stretched. So I don't expect Van Aert to really contest the finish, but of course I can be proven wrong, and quite often I am proving wrong. Right, and I'll cover some of the longer shots a little bit later, but let's go to my staking plan then. I like Patterson. I think based on what I saw in the opening stage, he's got to be a big runner here. He's a tough man. He can definitely make it over the climbs, and I do enjoy Patterson there at 14-1. That's at Sunbet. And then here come my roughies. I'm going at small bets here, as you'll see. And just to mention, cycling betting for me, particularly the early stages of the tour, I'm not out there to make a killing unless I see something really that stands out. And in the old days, you used to get that because you had a bookmaker setting the odds. These days, you have what I would call actuarial cyclists setting the odds. And there are very few slip-ups made as far as betting is concerned. So for me, it's a case of biding my time, riding in the punting peloton until I see the opportunity to strike. Half a unit on Patterson to win at 14-1. And then a quarter unit, Greg van Avermaet, who was fourth yesterday. CCC definitely targeting breaks, and I can see him being in the break today. You can get 80-1 about his chances at Sunbet. And then my colleague Chris Sturdy, well, he was on Neeson yesterday at 150-1. Yeah, the climbs did prove a little bit much for him, but he showed with his 11th finish in stage one that he's got good legs, and I expect him to make a go at the break now, as 82 are also Hunt stages. He's 100-1 for the win. A total of 1 unit invested there. We then move on to a double that I fancy, and it's Trentin over Venturini onto Bennett over Ewan. And I particularly like Bennett over Ewan today because I do think that Caleb Ewan is struggling. He's had a couple of crashes. He didn't contest the stage one sprint, although he did manage to get back on due to the neutralization. And for me, Bennett is a good thing here. He's a little bit short for me to back straight up. He's around about the 11-20 mark, but I'm going to throw a double in there with Trentin to beat Venturini, and I'm sticking a unit on that one. Another bet that I'm actually considering is the winning margin being 2 seconds or more at 7-1 at Sunbet. I just think the stage may not be a simple bunch finish that the bookies are expecting it to be. And if we do get a select group, there's always a chance that someone breaks away. But if I do anything, I'll post it on the Goodforthegame forum. Just a reminder, if you are new to our show, we're doing Tour de France previews every day. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you don't miss out. And then a couple of other options as well. In the description box, you'll see that we've got daily bets from other punters in the Goodforthegame forum. You can link through to that. And finally, I do send out a newsletter 2 or 3 times a week. And you can sign up for our Tour de France newsletter in the description box below. Enjoy the stage. It's going to be a crack. I won't be able to watch live today. I'll be recording and watching it after work, but really looking forward to the action. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Stage 4 preview.